So my name is Neil Delaney, and I look after our SMB sales internationally. So I love SMBs. I'm here to represent SMBs. I bleed SMBs. There's 99.9% of all the businesses in the UK are SMBs. So some 4.9 million SMB companies in the UK. So I'm here to represent them. I'm here to talk about fast growth within SMBs as well. I'm going to start off with this though. Anyway, hang on a sec. You're talking about SMBs, but the first thing you're putting up is the S&P 500. Well, yeah, I want to talk to first of all about the average age it takes for a company to exist before they get into S&P 500, this diverse range of companies. In 1957, the average age of a company was 75 years old before they got into the S&P 500. So we fast forward 50 odd years later, and the average age of a company the average age of a company to get into the S&P 500 is now 25 years. Fast forward again to last year, and the average age of a business was just 10 years. So the reason why I bring this up is the SMBs of today are the S&P 500 businesses tomorrow. Now let that number 10 years, that period of time, 10 years, sink in for a minute, right? That period is the same, for example, as Robbie Williams, between when Robbie Williams left Take That and Jason Orange left Take That, right? Within that space of time, a company has started, grown, and become an S&P 500 business. It's really quite incredible. And so what I want to kind of talk today is, well, what's driving this? What is driving growth, fast growth within SMB? So we move on. First of all, one of the main things, there's a few criteria, and I want to talk about that, is, quite obviously technological advances. Moore's Law continues to be upheld, and it should never cease to just amaze us. Like 28% of 3 to 4 year olds are able to use a tablet. These kids can probably not read or write, but they're certainly able to use a tablet. And what we should recognize is that the advancement in technology is not incremental, it's exponential. And that will continue. The exponential growth of technology will continue. As will access to technology, access to devices. We talked about the $60 phone, the £30 phone, the tablet, ubiquitous Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G or 5G. People's access to technology is growing at a pace that we've never seen before. And that gives SMBs, it allows them to be on a level playing field for the first time. It allows them to have big business technology at small business prices, which is incredibly exciting as well. And it also means that they can work everywhere. And work happens absolutely everywhere. 31% of people talk about working quite regularly from a client site. 27% of people talk about working while they're traveling. 23% from maybe a cafe. The cafe is greater than their desktop. But 4 in 10 people say they regularly work from home right now. 4 in 10 people regularly work from home. And what they're also saying is that their satisfaction with the technology they have at home is actually far superior to the satisfaction of the technology they have at work. Now, that's not a huge surprise, right? If we look, and Thomas referred to this earlier on, if we look at the technology or the people who increasingly purchase technology in the workplace, it's done for the buyer, it's done for the IT department. Whereas people are recognizing that the tools and technology they have at home and the consumers is far more powerful and allows them to get their work done in a far more productive way. And that's why over half of people bring their own devices, they bring their own apps, they bring their own tools to work. 53% of workers are now using personal devices and apps to do their jobs. So what does all this mean? Well, okay, so we get it. Technology is advancing at a rate like we've never seen before. It's exponential, not incremental. Access to that technology is incredible. People are using it not just in one location, but in many locations. They're doing it to suit they're working the way they live. They're doing it to suit their livelihoods and be more creative. But what does that actually mean for an SMB? Well, this is where the Deloitte research that hopefully you've read and you'll hear more about over the course of today is incredibly powerful, right? Because in page 1, it talks about the 3 key challenges that an SMB has to overcome to get sustainable growth, right? The first one is access to capital and skills. The second one is scalability and management control. And the third is driving innovation, sustainable innovation as they come from a very, very small startup right up the way. So what I want to kind of do today is give you some examples of how the cloud wins, how the cloud allows an SMB to overcome all of these challenges, and indeed how Google Apps for Work allows an SMB to overcome all of these challenges. And actually, Google Apps for SMBs allows companies to grow like they've never before. So if you look at the ONS data and you see the average growth of a private sector company in the UK in the last year was 3.3%. That's actually some of the best growth that the UK has had in quite some period of time. The average UK Google Apps customer, SMB, has actually grown by 18% in the last year as well. So companies have been using Google Apps in 2013, grew on average by 18% their workforce during that period of time. So over 5 times quicker than the average company growth. Why? Let's give some examples. So first of all, the first one challenge that an SMB has to overcome is access to capital and to skills. We have Tom in the audience today. He's going to be on the panel later on from Kano. Kano is a computer. It's built in the Raspberry using Linux underneath it. And Tom and a couple of his colleagues had an idea. And they started that idea on a Google Doc. And they kind of hacked through it. And what they wanted to do was put together this computer. It sells for £99, but they needed funding. And so during the course of one eventful evening, they worked on a Google Doc to put together the business case. They got on Hangouts. They collaborated during the night. They were all in different locations. And they came up with this great business proposal. And then they used the cloud Kickstarter to try and get some funding. So they had a goal of £59,000, I believe it was, which they passed in 18 hours. And they went up to get £900,000 worth of funding, including funding from like Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple. What's incredibly powerful, of course, is that they were able to hack, hustle, create, and get the speed in which they were able to access that capital through the cloud, through formulating their idea on a Google Doc, but also using Kickstarter to actually get access to the funding. And in terms of skills, a recent survey by Cisco showed that, this is incredible, like 1 in 3 young professionals and college graduates would forego earnings, so they'd be happy to earn less if they were able to choose the technology and the devices and the social media that they were able to use in work. Imagine that. Imagine recognizing that you're going to forgo money now because you realize you will get it back later on in your career if you're able to use the tools and productivity tools and methods that will actually make you successful and that you're used to using in college, in school, at work, at home. The second big issue for an SMB is scalability and management control. Now, Class 101 in business school will tell you that SMBs fail because of cash flow. You can have the most amazing idea you ever have, possible, but if you run out of cash, you're pretty much toast. And I want to talk about how Google Apps for Work can help you in terms of growing in a very scalable way. And I want to talk about a company called Rovio, who you probably all know, but they started in 2005, 3 students from Helsinki University, and they had an idea for a game, and they developed some. And 51 games later, they still had some ideas, but their 52nd game was pretty special. And it's been downloaded 1 billion times. Billions are great numbers. It was downloaded 1 billion times. Now, what Rovio actually did was they signed up, when they were just a handful of people, they signed up for Google Apps for Work on a credit card, a handful of people. They now have revenue in excess of $200 million. They're 58 nationalities across 5 continents. They're not just like a technology company. They call themselves a media and entertainment company. But this all started. They were able to grow in a very scalable way by actually forgoing CapEx, but using OpEx along the way as they incrementally grew staff. And we like to think Google Apps played a big part in helping them do that. It's also interesting, our cloud platform technology as well has allowed them to scale the peaks and troughs of when people go online and play Angry Birds. I like to think the little boy at the very start, maybe on that tablet, was playing Angry Birds, and Google platform technology is actually supporting that. The last example I want to talk about, which is the third challenge that SMBs need to overcome, is how to continuously drive innovation. How do we continuously churn out new ideas? How do we energize our staff? And a great example, another Google Apps for customers, TransferWise. Now I think hopefully people have heard of them. They exist in the rather staid world of international money transfer, right? Well, not your typical innovative industry. But they've approached this in such an innovative way. They've had incredible financial backing from people like Peter Thiel, from Richard Branson. But really at the essence of this company, and what you'll see in their marketing campaigns and how they exist as a team, is the way in which they collaborate. They work across boundaries to create ideas. So they were started in both London and Estonia. So their founders were Estonian. So they have 2 offices. They grew from 20 to 200 people since 2011. And they were able to do so by sharing these great innovative ideas on Google Drive, putting in projects, putting in media files for ideas for marketing campaigns, and then actually getting on Hangouts to discuss them. And indeed, what they've been able to do is, they call it hacking Hangouts, we call it using our APIs, but they've been able to have like these always-on Hangouts. So you have a Hangout always on in the London office, another one always on in the Tallinn office, and people just wave and they know they're there, and they're able to introduce people in their bi-weekly all-hands, new members of staff. They're able to ensure that the culture that has fostered this innovation in their business continues to thrive as they grow and as they grow and as they grow. So each new idea is shared, but it's done in a way that the tools augment the idea and augment the culture of innovation that they have. So each of these kind of businesses, I mentioned 3 Google Apps for businesses. We have thousands of people signing up for Google Apps every day. And each of these SMBs have very similar challenges that they need to overcome. And we feel that Google Apps for Work has given them a unique way in which to overcome. We completely endorse the findings that Deloitte have seen in their research, where cloud companies grow much quicker. Cloud companies grow much quicker than companies who don't use the cloud. And we feel there's 4 key value propositions behind Google Apps for Work that I just want to kind of run through very quickly. Well, first of all, you can work from anywhere. Your your taxi is as good as your desk place, your desktop. High velocity communication. We call it clock speed. The ability to turn around an idea, like Tom and the guys did in Kano overnight. The ability to put together a pitch, an RFP, in days as opposed to weeks, which allows you to win that business, which allows you to get your cash flow. The ability for real-time communication. So you can share ideas, whether or not you're in London, or whether or not you're in Estonia, or whether or not you're just across the floor. The technology allows you to do that. Google Apps for Work allows you to do that. And finally, cross-company sharing. Sharing the culture of an organization and doing so in a very scalable way. But what we also see is, and you all, I'm sure, have some varying levels of familiarity with Google Apps. Certainly you're all familiar with Gmail and the ease of use of it, the reliability, right? But actually, within Google Apps, there's magic. And I want to talk a little bit about that magic for 2 seconds and finish up on this. It's the magic of being able to work across boundaries, like many of our customers in the examples I gave you there. It's the magic being able to work in a document and share in real time, in live video, instantaneously, no matter where you are, what device you're on, information about that document, about what you're working on. But then we also see that magic manifest itself in terms of how businesses grow. Let me give you an example. So there's a scale. An x-axis is the year-over-year growth in employees that we see in Google Apps businesses in the UK, SMEs in the UK. And on the y-axis is their usage of their product, right? So if you remember earlier on, I was talking about, can anybody remember the average growth of a UK business? Not a Google Apps business, but a UK business? 3.3%. Great growth, best growth since 2008, right? The average growth of a Google Apps user in that period of time, right here, about 18%, okay? So let's say typical usage here. What we've also known is people who are collaborating more and sharing information more using Google Apps are actually growing at a much quicker rate than others in the different ways. So we've seen this correlation. So we've seen, first of all, with Drive, when you share files and folders, when you share docs, when you share slides, when you share sheets with each other, the more you share, you get not into just fast growth, you get into hyper growth, 40% plus year over year. And that correlation between active engagement, active collaboration becomes even more stark when you talk about Hangouts. When you combine that, like the example I gave previously, I won't go through the build, but the example you gave previously where there's people collaborating in real time, like Tom and the guys building out their Kano business plan, or when you're on your video, when you're breaking down these boundaries, that's when we see hypergrowth. And that's what growth looks like for SMBs today. It allows them to be more productive. It allows them to innovate. The cloud allows them to innovate quicker. and it allows them to kind of work across boundaries like they have never done before. Thomas really articulated it very well. We don't have to work longer. We don't have to work more. We just have to work more productively. And we really feel Google Apps for Business and Google Apps for Work has shown people how to do that. So I want to finish up with a lovely video of another SME. They're actually on the UK government's Fast 50 companies to watch who are growing incredibly quickly. They're an Anglo-French company based here in London, and they're a furniture retailer called Made.com. So if we can just maybe roll the video and show you another fast growth SME.
I didn't choose furniture. Furniture sort of chose us.
Made.com is making great design furniture accessible to everybody.
It's a very interesting dynamic between the three of us. We work very, very close together.
We all had the same belief that the furniture industry had to be disrupted. We started, we were 3 people, small 4 square meter room. We were now a team of 150 in 4 countries. We're using Google Apps on a day-to-day basis. They make everything quick, efficient, and very simple.
From a company that's set up entirely online, it is in our culture to do things fast.
We launch 2 new collections a week. If you don't like it, we take it out, and that's how we grow, just sitting purely on the market demand. I'm constantly on the move. I'm not in the office a lot. It's a big frustration for my team. So we started to use Google Apps, being able to check stuff on my phone anytime, signing off images on Google Slides or just going through documents is a massive help.
It's pretty easy to remember the first item that we sold because we had only 2 products on the website.
We waited, no one bought, 1 hour, 2 hours, and transaction, yes. Big part of our ambition is to keep that culture of moving fast and keep innovating every day.